What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. Baja Taco Tours. I got a 2016 KTM 500 Exc-f. Some will say that this is the greatest dirt bike ever, the greatest dual sport of all time. The 12 through 16 are kind of legendary for some of the features that they have. They've got the ability to mount the largest gas tank possible. The Acherbys tanks were the largest for that year spread. There was aftermarket support for that generation of bike that exceeds in a couple of ways some of the stuff that you get through the 17 plus generations. But I will say that for the 20, everybody is pretty much caught up. Like, for example, IMS makes a 4.5 gallon tank now. You could not get your hands on, so I'm looking at this power bomb right here. You could not get your hands on a power bomb for the 17 through 19, but you now can for the Xcf-w 20 plus. So each bike has advantages and disadvantages. There's generationally with each model, there's some specific things that if you're after certain attributes for a bike, then that particular generation may be the one for you. And again, just sort of generally speaking, the 12 through 16 is really loved by a lot of guys. Some of the engine components, the castings, the wall thicknesses of some of the internal components are a little stronger than they are in the later generations. And that's just a nature of like how dirt bike marketing works now, where they're just trying to race to the bottom as far as weight goes. So this generation may be, and I don't completely agree with this, but there are some who will say that this is the last great generation coming off of like the legendary RFS motor, when they were still building these to be completely, where weight wasn't the only consideration, like some will say it is now. So this one is super rad. We've got it set up to do some BDR, some adventure trips. This bike's been to Baja a couple of times. It's seen some good service, and so we've done a couple of upfits on it while we've had it this recent round. Let's start here in the back like we usually do. Tidy tail. That's the Taco Moto tidy tail. So we have the turn signal, brake, and run all in one. And then the version 2 light, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, is going to have a license plate down light. So pretty stoked about releasing that. We put on the sick ass. This is not the Enduro plate. So if you're wondering what the difference is, the Enduro plate has the flexible magnet, flexible hinge, and then the magnet. And then the sick ass one, this is just a standard rigid plastic, and it's bolted to the fender, to the under fender. And so if you take a side digger, you're going to potentially break that. Now, we're not super worried about that on this bike because we've got the rack assembly and the bag set up. So we just opted to go with the sick ass on that, save the guy a couple of bucks as far as sort of crash reliability goes. While we're here, let's take a look at this. We've got the Moscow. This is the rackless 80, and then we're sitting on a rack. And why are we doing that? And I don't really have this attached, so I'm going to go ahead and take this off so I can show you what's going on. So the rack, this is True North Moto, and we like their racks a lot. They mount to the back of the subframe. And here's why we recommend you run a rack if you're going to do a big cargo back end, if you're going to do a big bag. If you have small stuff, Moscow makes some smaller stuff. Giant Loop has some smaller stuff. And if your weight, and I hesitate to give a number, but let's say it's under 15, maybe 20 pounds. Again, I'm just making up a number. And let me tell you why. Because the aluminum of the subframe, which extends from an anchor point right here, you can see this bracket. So that is the aluminum subframe. Everything to the left of my finger is the subframe assembly, and then it comes down and mates right here. So it sort of goes in a triangle like this, and then the end point, the final point, is right here where this bolt is. It might extend another 1/2 of an inch back, but effectively that's where it ends. So if you're going to put a lot of weight behind here, it's sort of deceiving in that you've got, if you push down on this, there is a little bit of rigidity and strength to it, but it's only plastic. So with lighter bags, and I've run them, I've run the rackless 30 from Moscow, and then like the Giant Loop Coyote, and have had no problems whatsoever, and have probably had pack weights of less than 20 pounds for sure. But if you're going to go and load this thing up and do some extensive touring, and you're going to be potentially putting enough weight on this, and I've seen a photo of a guy who overloaded the back end of this, and the plastic gave way, and it yielded, and so it just sagged down, and then the back tire would come up and rub on it. It didn't crack or break, but you could tell that he was grossly overweighted. So if you're in doubt of that at all, then you're really going to want to throw on a rack and then put your bags on top of there. And one other advantage of this setup is you can mount some side pannier bags, whether hard or soft, and so that you can only do that if you've got some sort of rack assembly. So this setup gives you the flexibility to do an over the top like you saw with the Moscow, or a pannier, not panera bread, panniers, and you can throw those on and then rivet them, or just bolt them and secure them here. So that's what's going on with the rack. We've got the FMF Q4, which is a nice pipe. We like it. It's quiet. Sound does not equal horsepower. Sound does not equal better performance. It's just a louder pipe. And if you're riding in Forest Service areas or where other trail users would like you to consider them, the Q4 does a good job. Also, sound is super fatiguing. And if you're running an open pipe like a 4.1 or let's say the Graves without the DB killer in, that droning sound, that engine sound is pretty fatiguing. And so running the Graves with the DB killer in, or the Q4, is a great option for guys who don't want to listen to their motorcycle and don't want everybody within 3 miles to listen to their motorcycle, and make very, very comparable power. A couple of things back here on the rear end. We threw on the Tusk axle block, the axle block kit, and that's the adjustable kit, and then the bearing protector. Moose inside of these. Tractionator. I really like this tire. This is the 130 size Tractionator, Moto's Tractionator. It's the intermediate terrain. Moving up, I've got the Recluse CX in there. And as far as the suspension goes, let's talk about that for a second. This rider needed a little bit lower seat height. And so Pro Action here in Vegas, Pro Action has some offices around the U.S. They did a nice job lowering this, put a lowering kit in here. And then as far as accommodating the new lower suspension height, we put on the Warp 9 lowered Supermoto length kickstand. And you can cut yours if you have your stock stand is now too tall because you've lowered your bike. You can cut it and then re-weld the foot back on. I've seen that a lot. Or you could just opt to go with the Supermoto length Warp 9. That does a good job. Renthal back here on the rotor, or on the rear sprocket rather. And I think we're running stock. No, we're not. We're running 14 up front and then 49 here in the back, or 1448. I just saw the imprint on there, so 1448. So that's a nice all-around gearing. It's absolutely great for the dirt and single track and off-road. It gives up a little bit on the top end. This bike cruises really well at about 65 or 70. If you went with a shorter gearing, smaller rear sprocket, that is to say, then you could increase your speed on the road, maybe 90 to 100. If you threw a 45 back, and I think these bikes came stock 1445, that's 109 mile an hour setup, that gearing. I'm not going to go 109 miles an hour on a dirt bike on the highway on knobby tires. So I think that 65, 70 is about all you really need to do. That's all I do. I don't go any faster than that on the road. Dirt tricks on the dome washer. There's the Recluse slave cylinder. Golan, really like the fuel filter. We've got the Takomoto Fuel 90, because if you remember on the 12 through 16 generation bikes, they have that loop that comes down. Well, it's not so much a loop, but the bottom of the fuel tap comes straight out. And then with the 90, you can adapt it and then bring it in, sweep it in, so it's less vulnerable. TM design on the skid plate. They make a nice skid plate, and it's got some good coverage here as far as up around the motor, the water pump, and the stator. And then the 6 Days edition comes with a couple of bits of bling. You've got the front guards right here, and so they do a good job of protecting the radiator from an impact that would hit it right in this area. Let me kind of show you what I'm talking about. So you can see how the radiator guard is nice and stout and beefy. If you take a hit, though, behind it, you're going to dent your radiator. And I talk to guys often who say, I have radiator guards on, and I dent my radiators. And those are guards from a lot of different manufacturers that have the same sort of design. Very stout and robust at the front, but nothing on the side. So if you need side protection and you want actual real radiator protection, look for something that is either a full box guard or wraps around the side. Taco Moto Co. fork wrap front turn signals. Headlight is the Moto-minded XL80, and that's got the adjustable bracket. And so you can reach down and turn, you know, the angle of your headlight. So we talk about this all the time. This is the Baja Designs light, and if you get this from Baja Designs, it's going to be a rigid back plate, and the only way to adjust it is with the screw. You know, you get in here and you adjust the screw right there. But if you have the Baja Designs light from Moto-minded, they're going to set you up with this very cool bezel, the back plate, and then it's fully adjustable. So we use those exclusively. Highway dirt bikes are the bar guides. Very, very, very strong with the integrated mirrors. Super cool. You won't find a stronger bar guard out there. They just don't exist. Chad and Paul over there do a fantastic job. We like their stuff. GPR, this is the version 4. There is a newer version, version 5. The 4 works good. The 5 works a little bit better. We've been doing some testing on it, and so far we like it a lot. This bike has been... what was I going to say? So the suspension, yeah, so Pro Action did, you know, a lot of guys do not like the 4CS forks, and so they redid the internals on those to make them a lot more plush for this general dual sport use. Got the slim left-hand master switch because, as you may have found out on your bike, a lot of times the lever, especially the stock lever, now the aftermarket lever like this one doesn't quite interfere as much, but the stock light will interfere with the little adjusting nut on the stock lever, and you'll catch that. And sometimes I've had questions where a guy will say, well, my clutch, I got something wrong with my clutch. The lever won't pull all the way in. I must have a clutch issue. And what's happening is the nut is hanging up on the back of the switch. So doing some adjusting to the switch here, sometimes you can just turn it up or down, and that'll get you clearance. This is a push to talk button for the rugged radio system. His link is right here, and it just plugs that into the radio that he's wearing on his body. We've got the little cool Acerbis. We've got them on the slaves, or rather the masters of the clutch, and the brake. Let's see, seat concept seat. Under the airbox, we have the twin air filter, and then we're running the PC Racing filter gasket, and then a PC Racing filter skin. That's a great setup. Canyon Dancer on the fork loops for the tie downs. Little Acerbis mud cover for the front rotor. Moose front and rear. I think this has got the Michelin bibs in it as well. Let's see, a couple other things. The Acerbis fork frame guards, rather right there, just to dress it up and keep. I think, you know, they look better than stock. And I like the orange frame of the 6 days. So that's probably it. That's a good wrap on this bike. I think we also put on the Acerbis rear guard here, or the rear chain guide in the back. So you know, if the 12 through 16 is the greatest generation, then the 16 6 days might be the greatest of all. Because of just how exclusive it is. So it's a pretty special bike, pretty cool. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions about anything on this bike, or if you need help with your bike, with your setup, speccing out your bike, or building a bike to how you want to use it. Happy to help you. Happy to talk. And of course, like and subscribe. And as always, for real, go out, get some adventure.